Welcome to the Let's Talk About Love, Sex, and Infidelity podcast with your host, Todd Krieger. Todd has over 35 years of experience working with thousands of couples as a licensed therapist in his private practice. Todd shares his insights on this show. It's never too early to divorce-proof your marriage or too late to heal yourselves and have the relationship you truly want.
Hi, everybody. This is Todd Krieger, and today's subject is what if you could hit pause on an argument before it even starts? So what might that look like? What would it look like? What a picture would it look like to feel like you were able to stop an argument before it spirals? And how do couples master their ability to unlock that emotional freedom to prevent an argument before it even starts? I have a number of questions that I'm going to ask myself and answer it. One is it really possible to stop a fight before it happens? Well, the truth is that fights don't just happen. We do things to make it happen. There's patterns of behavior. Oftentimes we get triggered and we react from that trigger. And so it would be silly to think that we're stuck in this pattern. If we could just study ourselves and learn about our partners in us to understand what triggers us and what's the purpose of this fight that we're starting. And if we could figure that out, we're definitely on our way. So the answer is yes, of course, it's very possible to stop a fight before it happens. So another question is, what would a healthy response even look like? Well, for one, what you have to look at is that just because you're angry or frustrated or resentful or even hurt or sad or disappointed doesn't mean that your partner has to suffer. Okay, so you want to kind of follow that axiom that just because I have a negative feeling doesn't mean my partner has to suffer. So what would a healthy response look like? It would look like you're coming from a vulnerable place. You're not coming from a blaming place. You're not coming from a judgmental place. You are sharing information with your partner. When there's a fight, it's really two people that are reducing their attention at the expense of the other person. Actually, fights are all about attention. There are unconscious intentions, probably more unconscious than conscious. And the main intention is to reduce my tension. So if I'm stressed, I take it out on you. So what if I were to change my intent? My intent isn't to reduce my tension, nor is it to punish you or blame you or judge you or defend myself. Those are all automatic survival mechanism intentions that people have. But if we can just think about it for a moment, what if our intention was only to share, only to inform the other person what's going on with us? It's never possible to have a fight when your intention is to share. So a healthy response would look like you informing the other person, look, this is what's going on with me. This is what's going on with me on the inside of me. And I'm going to kind of let you see. So like, here I am. I'm going to bare myself emotionally naked so that you can see what's going on with me. And I could do that with any emotion. I could do that with anger. Say, I'm really angry at you. I could do that with sadness or disappointment. I could do that with joy and excitement. I could do that with enthusiasm. All I'm saying is I'm letting you know what's going on with me, and that is my only intention. That is what I call a clean intention, as opposed to some of the other intentions, such as, which I mentioned, to defend, to reduce my tension, to protect myself, okay, to punish. So it would look like two people letting the other person know what is going on. But it also looked like, from the listener's perspective, two people taking turns listening and sharing. One person talks, the other person listens. So there's a rhythm to the talking. You're not both talking on top of each other and interrupting each other, which many of us tend to do. And it's definitely a survival response. So that healthy response would look very different than that survival response for people who are just fighting for themselves and taking turns. Your intent is to share as opposed to any other intentions I mentioned, and to inform. So the next question then is, why do we both get triggered so fast? And I'm alluding to that, but the reason we get triggered so fast is because our brains are set up for survival. And maybe back in the days when we were cave people, that a fight or flight or freeze system, our nervous system, would engage when we were in life and death danger. An animal coming after us, someone stealing our food, whatever the case may have been then. But in our more modern times, with our more complex brains, we have what I would say symbolic survival fears. They're not really about life and death. But if I feel judged by you on some level, it might feel like a death of my self-esteem. Or it might feel like you're taking away my pride or my sense of self, or you're withdrawing your love from me, which feels like in our bodies the same as it would if the lion was coming after you. So we have these deep fears. And, our brains are set up for survival. So there's this, what we call a fast path of fear, a fast neural pathway of fear that really goes from our amygdala, which is the alarm system of the brain and the midbrain, right to our kind of perception system. And we see things like in the worst possible way to protect ourselves. And that's why we get triggered so fast. The good news is we also have a slower pathway that involves the cortex and our ability to think things through and take a look. And then, of course, when that gets involved, we have a chance to go, this is not life and death. If my partner's angry at me, I am not in danger. I can take a breath or two. I can relax. I am safe, even if my partner's furious at me. And when I feel safe enough, then I am in a position now to truly listen to my partner, which in turn is going to make my partner feel safe. So it does take some intent to recognize that we do get triggered. It's human to get triggered, but we can do better. So can we really learn to pause instead of reacting? Which is my next question. And of course, the answer is going to be yes. It takes effort to stop when there's part of our brain that say, you got to go and protect yourself, defend yourself, punish the other person, judge the other person, fight for your life. So it does take a little effort. And we know there's many things in life that take effort. It takes discipline, right? If we want to exercise, it's quite easy to be lazy than to exercise, but we know the benefits of exercise. So we put in the effort and we exercise. It's easier to eat badly than to eat well. Easier to eat something that's quick and sugary versus something that's healthier. It takes effort, it takes discipline. Then I could go on and on. And so you want to make a decision that you're going to take that discipline that is within you and apply it to your capacity to stop before you react. You're going to practice stopping. You pause, You take 2 breaths, 3 breaths. You breathe in to a count of 3. You exhale to a count of 6. Whatever you got to do is stop. You remind yourself that your mind's tricking you, that you're not in much danger as you feel, just because your partner is disagreeing with you or is angry with you. And that gives you the time to evolve your cortex and then to practice tuning in and listening. Or if you're the person expressing, sharing in such a way that your intent is clean, to inform and to be vulnerable. So the last question is, what's the impact of unresolved arguments over time? But the converse question is, what's the impact of the capacity to stop and not fight, but rather share? Okay, so obviously, unresolved arguments, or I should say, unresolved fighting, leads to both people feeling alone, feeling disconnected from each other. Of course, there's emotional stress. There can be physical stress. There can be the feeling of being not loved. So it can cause a lot of damage. Of course, that damage can spread to children in the family and other members of the family. So this is a very, very important talk that I want you to take very seriously, that you are going to set a clear intention, pause, and to learn how to express yourself cleanly, to practice listening. Because the impact of doing that is a more connected relationship, feeling connected, feeling a part of the relationship, feeling safe. And of course, that extends out to the health and well-being of other family members. So, in summary, how do you stop a fight before it starts? You are aware that your mind tricks you into thinking that things are worse than they really are in the moment. You practice that clean intention to share it more as opposed to defend, protect, blame, judge. Reduce tension. You understand that you have triggers, maybe even from the past, but that at least in the heat of the moment, you could pause, take some breaths, involve your cortex, and know that there's a tremendous positive gain for putting in the effort, for having the discipline, for slowing down long enough to express yourself cleanly and to listen with curiosity. And then, if there are deeper issues we explore and can share, at least you have a starting point where you're not being in an escalated argument. Nobody has insights. Nobody learns about themselves or the other person when they're in an escalated state. The learning only happens when you do your best to return to a relatively safer state, a calmer state, an interested state. So thanks for listening. Hopefully this is helpful. This is Todd Krieger, making the world safe for love. I want to mention that I have a program. The name is From Bickering and Escalating to Connecting and Loving. And it is an information-packed, down and to the point program that gets you learning how to go from bickering and escalating to connecting and loving, even in the most challenging of conversations. It combines neuroscience insights, real-time conflict resolution tools, and I call upon all my vast experience as a therapist for over 40 years, and I put it all in this amazingly useful program that you can apply immediately.
That's it for today's episode of Let's Talk About Love, Sex, and Infidelity podcast with your host, Todd Krieger. For free resources and materials, head over to toddkrieger.com. Loved this episode? Head over to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and leave a review. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you.